Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment the internet stopped laughing and started staring. One video, one emotional crack, and suddenly Chrisean, rock known for chaos, clapping back, and crashing timelines, was crying. Not yelling, not performing, crying, and the reason hit harder than any diss ever could. Blueface had moved on, and this time it looked real. Fans weren't ready, because we've seen arguments. We've seen breakups. We've seen messy reunions that made reality TV look underfunded. But this felt different. This felt like the kind of pain you don't plan to show, and once it's out, you can't pull it back in. The internet froze, then detonated. Screenshots flew like evidence. Comment sections turned into therapy sessions. And suddenly everyone who once joked about their chaos went quiet, asking the same uncomfortable question: is this the moment it finally hit her? Because while Blueface looked unbothered in a new relationship, Chrisean looked shattered in real time. No filters, no armor. Just raw emotion leaking through the cracks of a public life that never allows privacy. This makes celebrity drama look staged, because when the tears are real, the jokes stop landing. And when heartbreak goes viral, it never stays contained. And trust me, this breakdown wasn't the end. It was the trigger. The moment it surfaced, it didn't feel like another clip meant to stir the pot. It felt intrusive. A raw moment slipping through the cracks of a life that's been consumed by cameras for too long. Chrisean rock crying wasn't new, but this cry landed differently. No rage, no sarcasm, no theatrics. Just grief sitting heavy on her face, like it finally ran out of places to hide. And the reason was unmistakable. Blueface wasn't just rumored to be talking to someone new. He was in a new relationship, moving comfortably, publicly, and without hesitation. That detail mattered, because for years, the narrative around them lived in limbo. Breakups that never stuck. Reconciliations that felt inevitable. Chaos that always circled back to familiarity. This time, it didn't. The shift was immediate. Fans who once joked about their toxicity went quiet. People who thrived on the mess suddenly felt like they were watching something they shouldn't be seeing. Because when someone breaks down over a relationship that the internet has treated like a sport, the tone changes fast. Chrisean's tears weren't loud, but they were loaded. They carried years of defending him. Years of standing 10 toes down when everyone else said she deserved better. Years of being the loud one in love while he stayed comfortably detached. That imbalance had always been visible, but now it was undeniable. The internet didn't know how to respond at first. Some tried to downplay it, said she'd bounce back, said this was just another chapter in their endless saga. But that narrative didn't stick, because this wasn't a meltdown. It was realization. And realization hits harder than anger ever could. Fans started replaying the relationship from the beginning, not for entertainment but for context. Old interviews where Chrisean spoke about loyalty like it was oxygen. Moments where she took public hits just to protect him. Clips where she insisted they were forever, even as everything around them burned. Those moments aged instantly. What once looked like ride or die energy now looked like emotional investment that never got returned at the same volume. And the internet, brutal as it is, notices imbalance quickly when the outcome becomes clear. Blueface's role in this moment wasn't active, but it was present. His silence wasn't neutral. It wasn't respectful. It felt final. And finality is what shattered the illusion fans had been holding onto. Not that they'd get back together, but that they always could. This time, that door looked closed. The tears confirmed it. Chrisean wasn't reacting to a rumor. She wasn't spiraling over speculation. She was responding to reality, setting in the kind you can't argue with, subtweet away, or laugh through. The kind that tells you the story you believed in has ended without your consent. And that's devastating. What made this hit even harder was how unfiltered it felt. No dramatic captions. No soundtrack engineered for sympathy. Just emotion slipping out before it could be managed. That lack of control made it feel real in a way reality TV never quite captures. Fans felt conflicted. Some expressed empathy, saying this was the human side of someone they'd watched be treated like entertainment for too long. Others were harsher, claiming she should have known better. That split revealed something uncomfortable: the internet's tendency to punish vulnerability. After consuming chaos, Chrisean became both victim and spectacle in the same breath. Blueface's new relationship became the backdrop for all of it, not because of who he was with, but because of how easily he seemed to move on. That contrast was brutal. One person processing loss in real time, the other appearing settled, comfortable, and unaffected. That visual alone fueled outrage. People accused him of emotional negligence, of dragging things out until she was too invested, of moving on publicly without regard for the damage left behind. Whether those accusations were fair didn't matter. The narrative had momentum, and momentum online doesn't ask permission. Chrisean's crying wasn't just about him. It was about everything attached to him. The public scrutiny, the humiliation, the endless cycle of being loud in love while the world laughed. This moment felt like the emotional bill finally coming due. The internet shifted from popcorn mode to concern. Comment sections filled with messages urging her to heal, to step back, to choose herself. Ironically, those messages arrived only after the damage was done. The internet loves to offer wisdom after watching someone burn. The tears changed how people talked about her. She wasn't the chaotic character anymore. She was the hurt person behind the persona. And once that curtain lifts, it doesn't close easily. Fans started questioning how much of her chaos was coping, how much of her loudness was armor. That reframing was powerful and painful, because it forced the audience to acknowledge their role in consuming her pain as content. Every viral clip, every joke, every meme, they all felt heavier in hindsight. Blueface didn't respond, and that silence echoed louder than any statement could. It told people he'd moved on emotionally long before the public caught up. And realizing you were the only one still in the story is a heartbreak few recover from quickly. By the end of this phase, one thing was clear: this wasn't another episode. This wasn't another stunt. This was the moment the fantasy collapsed. Chrisean's tears weren't weakness. They were clarity. And clarity, once it hits, doesn't leave quietly. Because when the internet finally sees someone hurting for real, it can't unsee it. And what came next wasn't going to be kind, because the internet never knows how to sit with grief without turning it into a spectacle. This breakdown wasn't the climax. It was the beginning of the fallout. The escalation didn't come from another video of Chrisean crying. It came from the internet realizing the tears were real and deciding that meant it was time to pick sides. Once that switch flipped, the story mutated fast. This wasn't about a breakup anymore. It became a referendum on loyalty, replacement, and who gets to move on without consequences. Memes showed up like clockwork, but the humor was off. Nervous laughter, forced jokes, the kind of memes people share and then immediately add. "I hope she's okay though." Side-by-side edits flooded timelines. Blueface smiling with his new partner on one side, Chrisean wiping tears on the other. The contrast did all the talking. No captions needed. The internet loves a visual it can moralize. Then came the armchair psychology. Suddenly everyone was diagnosing attachment styles, trauma bonds, narcissism, emotional neglect. Comment sections read like therapy intake forms written by people who've never met either of them. Blueface's calm was framed as cruelty. Chrisean's vulnerability was framed as proof she loved harder. And once that narrative took hold, it spread faster than facts ever could. Blueface's silence poured gasoline on it. Not because silence is inherently wrong, but because timing matters. Silence when someone is hurting publicly doesn't feel neutral. It feels dismissive. It feels like the story has already ended for one person while the other is still bleeding in front of an audience. That imbalance enraged people. Nevi became unavoidable in the discourse. Not as a person, but as a symbol of moving on, of replacement, of the next chapter starting before the last one finished emotionally. She didn't post. She didn't clap back. She didn't explain. And yet, she was everywhere, attached to every argument, every think piece, every meme that needed a face for the new side of the story. That's how online narratives work. Presence equals participation. Whether you asked for it or not, outrage peaked when fans accused Blueface of staging the moment. Not staging the relationship, but staging the visibility. The timing. The public ease. The casualness. People argued he knew exactly what Chrisean was going through and chose visibility anyway. That accusation hit harder than cheating rumors ever could, because it centered intent instead of behavior. Intent is harder to defend. The audience split sharply. One camp argued Blueface owed her nothing relationships and people move on. Feelings aren't contracts. The other camp insisted decency matters, especially when emotions are raw and history is messy. Both sides talked past each other, and the louder they got, the uglier it felt. Celebrity reactions added layers without clarity. No one named names, but the vibes were obvious. Cryptic posts about healing were obvious. Cryptic posts about healing. Quotes about choosing peace. Likes on posts that felt conveniently timed. Subtle unfollows that fans clocked immediately. It was all indirect, all deniable, and all unmistakably about the moment. The conversation widened beyond the couple. People started interrogating why Chrisean's pain had become entertainment in the first place. Why her vulnerability was only taken seriously once it looked uncontainable. Why chaos was celebrated until it turned into grief. That self-reflection didn't stop the spectacle, but it complicated it. Chrisean's crying reframed everything. Moments once written off as wild behavior were reconsidered as coping. Her loudness started to look like armor. Her volatility like survival. The internet rarely grants that kind of nuance, but when it does, it's usually too late to be helpful. Blueface's image took on a colder edge, not villainous detached. People describe him as emotionally unavailable, unbothered, already gone. Whether that was fair didn't matter. Perception locked in. The more he said nothing, the more people filled in the blanks with their own experiences of being left behind. Nubi's role remained complicated and unfair. She became the lightning rod for feelings that didn't belong to her. Some attacked her. Others defended her fiercely. Both sides missed the point. She wasn't the cause, she was the context. But online, context gets flattened into characters because it's easier to argue with a person than a pattern. And the pattern was unmistakable. Public relationships. Public breakups. One partner emotionally exposed. The other moving forward quietly. Fans recognized it. They'd seen it before, not just here, but in their own lives. That recognition fueled projection, and projection fueled outrage. The story started generating think pieces instead of memes, long threads dissecting emotional labor, videos explaining why public humiliation cuts deeper than private endings, commentaries about how women are expected to heal loudly while men get praised for stoicism. The narrative matured, but the pain stayed raw. Chrisean still hadn't said much, and that restraint, intentional or not, made her more sympathetic. Every tear felt unmanufactured. Every quiet moment felt earned. The internet, used to chaos, didn't know how to process someone choosing not to perform their pain for once. Blueface's continued forward motion became the focal point, not his happiness. His momentum. Momentum during someone else's heartbreak feels like erasure. Fans interpreted it as confirmation that he'd emotionally exited long ago. That realization hurt more than any public slight. The outrage didn't demand reconciliation, it demanded acknowledgement, a sentence, a nod, anything that recognized the depth of what she was feeling. The absence of that acknowledgement hardened opinions and froze empathy in place. By the end of this phase, the narrative had fully transformed. This wasn't about who dated who next. It was about how endings happen. Who gets closure? Who gets watched while they hurt? And the internet, having chosen its frame, waited for the next development not to heal anyone, but to see who would finally break the silence. Because once grief becomes content, the audience never stops asking for another scene. The aftermath didn't come with closure. It came with exhaustion. The kind that settles in after the crying stops and the cameras keep rolling anyway. Chrisean didn't disappear, but she changed. And the internet, which thrives on noise, noticed the shift immediately. The chaos that once defined her presence dulled into something quieter, heavier, and far less entertaining for people who only knew how to consume her at full volume. That quiet wasn't peace. It was recalibration. For the first time in a long time, Chrisean's energy felt inward. Fewer impulsive reactions, less performative rage, more pauses. And pauses online are dangerous because they invite interpretation. Fans filled the gaps with concern, with projection, with unsolicited advice that arrived far too late to matter. Her crying moment became a timestamp, not a meme. A marker. Before the tears, the relationship drama felt cyclical, predictable, almost scripted. After the tears, everything got reframed. People stopped expecting a reunion, stopped joking about they'll be back together next week. The illusion cracked, and once illusions break, they don't get patched back together the same way. Blueface's continued movement forward sealed it, not with malice, not with celebration, with normalcy. And normalcy, when contrasted against visible heartbreak, reads like abandonment. He didn't have to say anything for the message to land. The message was in the ease, the comfort, the lack of urgency to explain himself to anyone. That hurt lingered in the audience more than it likely lingered in him. Public perception began to harden not into outrage, but into fatigue. People weren't angry anymore. They were tired of watching the same imbalance repeat. Another woman loving loudly, another man exiting quietly, another cycle completed without accountability, just acceptance. That kind of fatigue sticks. Navee's position in the aftermath remained complicated and unfair. Over time, the loudest attacks against her cooled, replaced by a colder scrutiny. She became less a target and more a symbol of moving on, of replacement, of the next chapter that doesn't wait for healing to finish. Symbols don't get empathy. They get meaning assigned to them. Chrisean, meanwhile, gained a different kind of sympathy. Not the viral kind. The uncomfortable kind. The kind that forces people to acknowledge they might have laughed too hard when things were clearly unhealthy. That reckoning didn't trend, but it shifted tone. Comments became less cruel. Jokes lost their edge. The internet doesn't apologize. It just changes direction. Blueface's image absorbed a subtle but lasting weight. Not cancellation. Not villainization. Something quieter predictability. The story around him began to feel finished even if his career wasn't. Audiences recognize patterns quickly, and once recognized, patterns lose shock value. Shock is currency online. Predictability isn't. Chrisean's pain also changed how people talked about her past behavior. What once got dismissed as wildness started getting reframed as coping. Her emotional extremes were no longer just entertainment, they were context. That doesn't erase accountability, but it adds dimension. And dimension complicates easy narratives. Complication slows virality. The audience that once demanded more chaos began demanding space. Ironically, that space arrived only after damage was done. Messages urging healing, therapy, self-love flooded in like rain after a fire. Helpful in theory, useless in timing, but something stuck anyway. Chrisean didn't rebound loudly. She didn't weaponize the moment. She didn't turn tears into a brand pivot. That restraint altered how she was seen. Not healed, not fixed, but human in a way the internet rarely allows women to be without punishing them. That humanity lingered. Blueface didn't respond to the emotional fallout. And in doing so, he allowed the audience to write its own ending. Some saw strength. Others saw coldness. Most saw distance. Distance isn't evil, but it is definitive. It tells people the story has moved on whether they're ready or not. The relationship's legacy shifted. It stopped being remembered for chaos and started being remembered for imbalance. For how one person felt everything publicly while the other disengaged quietly. For how love became content, then consequences, then silence. That's not a flattering legacy for anyone involved. The internet eventually scrolled on. It always does. New scandals arrived. New heartbreaks took center stage. But this one didn't vanish. It's settled into memory as a cautionary tale the kind people reference without explaining, because everyone remembers the feeling, not the facts. The feeling, Chrisean's tears became shorthand for a realization many people know too well: loving someone harder doesn't keep them. Being loud doesn't stop quiet exits. And public devotion doesn't guarantee private loyalty. Those truths don't trend well, but they endure. The story didn't end with reconciliation or revenge. It ended with asymmetry. One person processing publicly. One person moving forward privately. One person caught in between as a symbol of change she didn't ask to represent. That's the modern breakup arc. No closure. No clean villain. Just emotional aftershocks that echo long after the clip stops looping. And that echo is what lasts. Because when fans are stunned by tears, it's not just about who moved on. It's about realizing that behind all the chaos, the pain was real the entire time, and the internet only noticed once it couldn't laugh it away anymore. That's not the end of the story. It's the part that stays. And before you scroll like, nothing just happened, pause. Because if you stayed through all of that, you didn't just watch drama. You watched a real emotional collapse play out under a microscope. No edits, no filters. Just heartbreak meeting the algorithm head dash on. So do what the algorithm actually understands. Smash that like button like it owes you money and block you right after. Drop a comment and say it out loud. Did Chrisean finally realize it was over? Or did Blueface move on in the coldest way possible? And be honest, did the internet push her to this breaking point? Or was this heartbreak inevitable? Don't lurk. This comment section is where the real autopsies happen. And if you don't want to miss the next moment where celebrity chaos turns painfully real, subscribe to Celeb Insanity right now. Because here on Celeb Insanity, we don't sugarcoat heartbreak or dress pain up for clicks. We break it down while it's still raw, still uncomfortable, and still unfolding. Turn on notifications so you're never catching up late pretending you just saw it.